Croissant in round 1. Oh, it looks like he's actually already in game. So let me hop in there. So we've got El Croissant versus Hat Trick. I screwed up big time. My deck lists are on the same monitor as the stream, so if I grab them now, it'll actually interrupt the gameplay. So I can't look up Hat Trick's deck list, but it does look like a pretty standard elusive deck. And it looks like El Croissant started off with the burn, which makes me think there's no way you ever ban a Poro deck in tournament, right? This does read to me that the Pilfer TF Lux was banned, which is understandable. Lux is a very powerful deck. It can hold its own on a lot of lineups. Actually, is this? There we go. Okay, I just couldn't hear the in-game sounds. It seemed a little weird to me. I might have to turn those down just a smidge. Just a smidge while I gather my bearings. Sorry, everybody. First game of the day. First cast of the day. So, still waking up, still getting the rust out. Been about a couple of days since I did this, but generally, I think that Burn is favored in this matchup. The upgraded Zed could change things. That is one of the best tools for elusives to actually get the race down. Is the Zed. So, oh, Trifarian Assessor, that's a big one. It is a little unfortunate that there is an Omen Hawk on the other side of the field. I actually think I would have preferred a couple of Legion Grenadiers coming down here, but now with the Kinku Wayfinder, it's going to be a little bit hard to wayfind your way into some damage if you're an El Croissant fan, and I don't think there's actually going to be a whole lot getting pushed through here. With only 1 mana remaining, yeah, Hat Trick feels pretty safe to go ahead and even throw out a block with the Zed. Yeah, and things, I'm hard-pressed to imagine El Croissant coming back from this one. Hat Trick is still at a very high life total and has a lot of damage on board. I think this might even be lethal with the open attack. There is just enough mana for El Croissant to throw out both the Noxian Fervor and the Get Excited to go ahead and not die here. But with 1, 2, 2, 5, and 9. Okay, so he does only need to take out 1 Zed. Any unit actually saves him. Of course, most likely going to go with the Zed. And there's not a lot of opportunities for Hat Trick to save this, actually. Elixir of Iron, not going to get it done because he did go for the block. Disciplines of Fortitude will do it, but unless he's got another one or 2 copies of Elixir of Iron, Noxian Fervor will take out the Zed and let El Croissant live for another turn. But with 2 burn spells gone and a card discarded, while Hat Trick has a rather weak board, El Croissant has no setup, and I don't think is going to have the damage to get this one done. And of course, with Hat Trick playing elusives, El Croissant not having any of those or spells to deal with them, it is pretty likely that Hat Trick's going to be able to clean this one up. And the Trifarian Assessor, you know, an interesting tech coming out of El Croissant. You know, it is a very aggressive card. I actually prefer it in things like Frostbite Control, where we have access to, you know, things like Trifarian Glories, or Trifarian Assessor, rather. Because this is... Have I been calling this Trifarian Assessor? I think I have. And his name is not Trifarian Assessor. It's... God, I pulled up card names so that I could look them up, but they're on the same screen as the stream. So that'll be fixed for Game 2. I do apologize for that. I'll actually be able to fix that at the end of Game 1 here. Yeah, that's going to be a surrender out of El Croissant. The Omen Hawks stonewalling out the Trifarian. A little unfortunate there. Yeah, let me pull this back to me just so that I can grab my browser. Aha. He slipped it through. Back to the game. So his name's not Trifarian Glory Seeker, it's Trifarian... Did I lose it? Nope, here it is. Reckless Trifarian. Okay, I was definitely calling it Trifarian Glory Seeker. That's my bad. So yeah, Reckless Trifarian, a card that I've seen a couple times, like it was in like old Frostbite Control decks where you would go for it. It was just like a nice cheap unit to turn on Trifarian Assessor, as well as just, you know, a rather aggressive option for a deck that kind of liked to go a little aggro when it can. Yeah, we do see the Poro deck coming out of El Croissant, going to maul away that Aurora Borealis, keeping the health potion against Karina Varaza control. A little bit of an interesting choice, and overall a pretty weak hand from El Croissant. Deep Meditation could help us find some things, but a Claws of the Dragon protected by an Elixir of Iron and Health Potion doesn't feel like the most threatening unit you could possibly make. That being said, if there is a Might of Poros in this deck, which there is, Heart of the Fluff rather is the name of it, a couple of Mighty Poros, Claws of the Dragon, Lonely Poro, none of the Ionia Poro, which... Okay, so when I'm sitting down and I'm like, okay, yeah, you know, I need to know card names. I'm a caster. It's pretty reasonable that that's, you know, a skill set that I should have. I should be able to look at a card and tell you what it is, right? But what I wasn't prepared to do was try and tell you which keyword the Ionia Poro has off the top of my head. Because I know it's not elusive. That's the Piltover Zon one. Is it quick attack? It is quick attack. Okay, Nimble Poro has quick attack. So I understand why that's not in the deck. That makes a little bit of sense to me. But yeah, Heart of the point I was trying to make, Heart of the Fluff actually is a little bit difficult for Karina Veraza Control to deal with. Because it is a large unit that is generally going to be out of the range of something like Thermogenic Beam. I was trying to think of Thermo Beam. Because it's out of the range of Thermo Beam, and it does create a 4/4 on death regardless, and there's a good chance that Lonely Poro rather will give it a relevant keyword, potentially even elusive, then it could actually swing the tide for El Croissant here. Is there Poro Snacks in the deck? I would assume there is. Yeah, there's Poro Snacks, there's Aurora Borealis. So yeah, it's actually pretty reasonable for these Poros to actually overwhelm the Karina Veraza deck. But Hat Trick getting a really good start here with the Elise does kind of take that plan off the table. El Croissant just not really having his mana lineup in the early game here. If Karina's going to win, I do think that this is probably the most effective way for them to do it. But the Kindly Tavern Keeper probably going to help El Croissant stay alive. But there's no tools to deal with the Elise evolution unless a Will of Ionia is thrown. No, there's nothing Will of Ionia can do, right? Because you just replay the Elise afterwards. So unless Hat Trick commits 4 mana or 5 mana to something, it'd really have to be like a post-combat Vi. But even then, I'm pretty sure you do want to throw that Will of Ionia at something like the Vi instead of preventing the Elise upgrade. So this one could be slipping away from El Croissant here, just based on the early game. Kindly Tavern Keeper going to keep him a little bit healthier, but there's really no gas in the tank for El Croissant. Does have a couple of tools like the Retreat, going to be able to keep himself healthy for a while, but without a combination of Lonely Poro and Heart of the Fluff, this Poro Snacks isn't even really going to get anything done. There we do see the Elise evolution I was talking about, which means Kindly Tavern Keeper isn't even a blocker anymore. The Aurora Borealis might actually get fired off here just to create some Poros, help build up the board a little bit. I do believe this card, yeah, it creates 2 random Poros, so there is a chance that it gets non-1-drop Poros. Not going to be the case here. We're hoping for a Mighty Poro, maybe even a Heart of the Fluff would have been great. And El Croissant just going to pass it back over. Ooh, the Brood Awakening. I don't think this is quite lethal on the next turn, although we are getting pretty close to it. Of course, El Croissant can retreat and replay the Kindly Tavern Keeper. But staring down 15 damage on the side of Hat Trick, and while that's not lethal on its own, there is a lot of burn spells in a Karina Veraza deck. And the Kindly Tavern Keeper is not going to be able to block anything. We're probably going to have to see the Will of Ionia onto the Elise now, just to preserve the life total, as I don't think 1 Deny is going to do it in the face of all of the burn that could be coming out of Hat Trick. Actually, if the Poros had been played last turn, so if the Poros had been played by El Croissant last turn, the 2 Poros that he got off Aurora Borealis, then he could double Poro Snacks on this turn and turn them into blockers, and actually block the Elise, because there was no chance that Hat Trick was going to pull the Poros. Well, I guess there was a chance. There is a chance that Hat Trick pulls the Poros to the side onto the spiders because he knows that you have the 2 Poro Snacks from the Aurora Borealis. And at least then, even you would have saved yourself the 4 damage. And you would have preserved the Will of Ionia. Granted, Will of Ionia is not a great card against the Karina Veraza deck. It is just, it's okay against Vi, but as far as the 9 drops, you don't really want to be bouncing those and giving them value. It's not very good versus Elise because she's so cheap. It really is only Vi that you find value in this matchup with that card on. We do see a Poro Snacks forced out for the Vile Feast. And with a full board, no Spider going to come out for Hat Trick. And it looks like El Croissant is starting to mount a comeback. If he's going to get a comeback, this is how it starts off. Deny top deck is not how it starts off, but we do have the 2 mana Deep Meditation now. Hopefully find us something good. A Poro Snacks and a Flash Freeze. Not the most ideal. He is going to have some... I don't even want to say big Poros. They're like medium-sized Poros. And it is a rather large mana commitment, and we are moving into the turn 9 for the Karina deck, so... Karina Veraza's effect would almost certainly get denied. I think we're going to see El Croissant fire off a Poro Snacks here. Just to be mana efficient. It does take him off the deny mana. It's actually going to be retreat onto the Kindly Tavern Keeper. Going for this proactively is a little scary. Hat Trick does have the opportunity to throw out a Grasp of the Undying or a Vengeance, kind of turn this play off. And while there is deny mana for El Croissant, he wouldn't have the opportunity to get the Tavern Keeper back into play if he does go for this deny. Would have much preferred a Grasp of the Undying so that Elixir of Iron could have saved it, but not going to be the case here. El Croissant, starting to understand that the deny is not actually super impactful here, would not give you the opportunity to play the Kindly Tavern Keeper again, as you'd be tapped out, and your opponent is pretty likely to just open attack on the following turn. Does have the Poro Snacks to get up a couple blockers, but I do think we're going to see some challenges from Hat Trick here just to play it a little bit safer. Does know that the Poro Snacks is in El Croissant's hand because of the Aurora Borealis. In case it's not clear, I am going to say the name of Aurora Borealis as many times as I am legally capable of this stream, and I'm going to constantly remind you of the existence of this Poro Snacks created by said Aurora Borealis. I love the animation for this card too. A lot of burst speed cards don't really have cool animations, but the Poro Snacks is definitely one of my favorites. And that's going to eat out a deny. And it's pretty reasonable for Hat Trick to still find the lethal here. Does still have 5 cards and 9 mana, so even if we just see like a Karina Veraza come down post-combat, unless there is an impossibly unlikely whiff on the side of Hat Trick, then we will see game number 1, or round number 1 rather, going the way of Hat Trick. And we do see Commander Ledros, and with no mana left, that is going to be El Croissant. Going down to 0-2 here in the start of the OLS number 3. A little bit unfortunate for him. We're going to go back to me real quick while I hop us down into one of the backup streams. We're going to go up to Gratcher now, who we had mentioned a little bit earlier. And it looks like we see him locked in with his deep deck. As previously mentioned, there are no Maokais in this deck. It is just the 3 copies of Nautilus. It's a little hard to tell exactly what came in place of the Nautilus, or in place of the Maokais rather. It does generally mean that he's not going to be moving through his deck as quickly. He does have the Lure of the Depths, as I mentioned, which is a little non-standard, but not something that's... It's not like we've never seen it before, and it looks like both of them actually have already been fired off, as he does have 4 mana Devourer of the Depths in his hand. And 1 card away from deep, which means on his next turn, he will be able to draw and throw down this Devourer onto the Commander Ledros. Definitely one of the most effective ways to deal with it, and with 2 lifesteal units on, or sorry, 1 lifesteal unit on board, he's actually going to get kind of healthy. Of course, we do see the Karina decks nowadays running 3 copies of Commander Ledros, so it might not even be the biggest deal if one of them is obliterated. But Gratcher does have a lot of damage on board and double atrocity. It's not out of the realm of possibility that we actually even see a lethal this turn. There's going to be at least 12 damage pushed through. Okay, yeah, so I like this from Gratcher, actually. Playing around the Ruination, not going for the Obliterate onto the Ledros, saying you can go ahead and block it as long as you fall down to this 12 life total. I can go back up to 13. It's fine if you want to recommit your mana to the Ledros this turn. But actually doesn't value killing the 7/7. It'd have to be a Vengeance, if anything, or double Grasp of the Undying to help take out one of these Abyssal Eyes. And we do see 2 spells lined up. That's feeling like double Grasp to me. Gotcha. And get excited. Okay, hold on. Here I am trying to call out 5 mana spell, or 3 damage spells rather. How'd I miss twice? I'm a little curious to see how Gratcher plays this one out. Okay, so what will be the atrocity into face? I was a little curious if that was going to go at Ledros or something, since there is no mana for Phillips to play it this turn would be a nice setup to get the Ladros dead. Your opponent wants to play it again next turn, and then you have free reign to go ahead and devour it since they are pretty much out of cards at that point. Of course, we might just see it come out now, and with 3 health on the Commander Ladros and 7 health on the Devourer of the Depths, I don't think there's any single spell for 5 mana that can protect Ladros from getting obliterated here, which could swing the game in Gratcher's favor. I know personally every time I've played Karina against sea monsters and they devoured my Ladros, I had another one on backup. Always felt pretty okay with that. We do see Phillips down to 8 life and another atrocity in the hand of Gratcher. Not going to be able to win the game next turn with it though, as everything will only have 7 attack. Not quite enough. Yeah, I do like the Devourer a bit more here. You do have 3 of them. You might as well start running them out. There's nothing that your opponent can do. While you don't get them to commit to the Ladros play again, it does give your opponent a little bit of worse options. You always kind of like, that's kind of how decks have a good Karina matchup, quote unquote, is you get to the turn 9 and you get yourself into a situation where you are just consistently fine with them playing the Ladros out every single turn. It's not actually that threatening on your life total. The tempo swing can be massive for you if you can continue to go wide. And I do think that Sea Monsters has a fairly decent Karina matchup, and maybe that's why we saw it so much last week. And it would also explain the complete lack of Karina in the top 8 of Duels of Runeterra 9. Since there were so many Sea Monsters, it's possible that those gate kept out the Karinas. We do see Ladros number 2 come down. This is what I was talking about, but there is another Devourer of the Depths for Gratcher. And while it's not impossible for Phillips to burn out Gratcher here, we did see one Get Excited come down a little bit earlier onto the Abyssal Eye. Yeah, so we see the Vile Feast come out to try and prevent the Devourer, as it would tie them at 6 HP, and Devourer would not go off, but we see the Grasp out of Gratcher to make sure that it does happen. And going up to 9 life, I do think means that Phillips is going to be losing this here game, not going to be able to burn out Gratcher at all. It would take something like double Get Excited, double Mystic Shot on the following turn, which is a little bit unreasonable, considering we did already see one of those come out. And Gratcher just going to be able to open attack, and even as long as one of these connects, then the atrocity will be lethal. And it looks like, yeah, we're actually going to get the Jaw Hunters out here. Don't mind that. There's not a lot of need for the spell mana. You're really just trying to play the atrocity next turn. You don't really have any backup for it, and there's even a very good chance that your opponent is actually just going to die to your open attacks, or at least commit all of their mana to removing them. But yeah, as I mentioned, with only one blocker, I really don't see Phillips getting out of this one. The Jettison, a totally useless top deck. That's one of the reasons I never enjoyed the Sea Monster deck myself. Okay, we do see 2 spells fired off. Withering Wail, and just 2 Withering Wails. I believe that's still lethal even without, yeah. So Gratcher just going to go ahead and hit that OK button to win the game. And I'm not sure which game this is, actually. I'm assuming it was game 2, but I'm not sure of the series score, so we'll have to find that out together in a second here. Oh, no, that was game number 1. Okay, so yeah, Gratcher taking game number 1. Now going to move over to the Frostbite Ezreal, as it was Lux Karma that was banned out. A very reasonable ban. It's a deck that nobody really enjoys playing against. We're going to see Phillips return to the Karina. I'm still not totally sure how I feel about the Karina and Ezreal matchup. Of course, excuse me, 9 times out of 10 when we were playing this matchup, you know, it was always Karma Ezreal into the Karina deck, so it does change things. The Frostbite effect's nowhere near as effective against the Karina deck because it is so late game. And I know that it can be difficult for Ezreal to really get its targets off against the Karina deck. They can just kind of sit here and go to turn 9. Remove all of your early units. There's no real option for the Ezreal deck to get aggressive early, even if it starts just throwing down Frostveil Archers and Avarosan Marksmen and tries to push through the damage early. It's almost never going to work out. And here we see the Entreat actually grab a Vi, which is not ideal. Vi is something that could put the Karina deck on the back foot, but they haveVis of their own to kind of snuff that out. Yeah, and Stubble Flash Freeze not really doing anything. Mushrooms are a pseudo-effective game plan against the Karina. Definitely don't hate that. It's not as effective as it is in the Karma Ezreal deck, where you can go to the Karma into doubling up on the Shrooms, but jump wump attack. Phillips might not even do anything about this. could just grasp it after the fact, is going to go for the Get Excited first, discarding Withering Wail. There's a little bit of healing that you're getting rid of, but the removal potential of Withering Wail is pretty low. It doesn't do anything to Divide. Can get rid of Ice Veil Archers, Avarosan Sentries, things of that nature. Let's actually look at what Gratcher does have here in terms of a unit lineup for this deck. How have I lost it? 2 decks just like deleted themselves out of my browser, and that was apparently one of them. But it's okay, I can get back. Alright, so we do have Avarosan Sentry, Iceveil Archer, and Avarosan Marksman. Only one Avarosan Marksman. Okay, we did see that one in his opening hand. So a good chance that one's not coming back. Only the 1 copy of Entreat, 3 Flash Freeze. We do see Rummage in the deck as well. A little standard, seeing as there is Chomp Wumps. But the one thing that I do like is Progress Day. Progress Day is a card that has more or less been getting cut from every PNZ deck down the line in terms, mostly because PNZ is traditionally being paired with Ionia currently. We usually see Ezreal Karma or Heimer Vi, and then you have the Deep Meditation to sort of replace the copies of Progress Day. They're a little bit easier to get off. They're a little more consistent in what you want to find. Not so much for Heimerdinger, because you do want to find the Heimer, but for Ezreal, you just want to keep cycling through spells. So Progress Day is definitely a card that we've seen come out less and less. And we do see the first Vi answered here from Phillips with relative ease. Does mean he could have a Thermo Beam for the second one, or just a Vi of his own. And I do think Gratcher's going to fire off this Thermo Beam. There's really not a lot of value for Thermo Beam to get in this matchup. Throwing it down on the 9-drops certainly feels bad since they get immediate value. And of course, Ladros will just keep coming back and coming back. But instead going to throw down a Vi of his own. Says that Phillips has to commit at least 2 more cards if he wants to take this one down. And it will actually just be the pass from Phillips. Scratcher had the Flash Freeze to buff up the Vi enough to kill it, as well as take no damage. And it looks like he's going to go for that play again here. Actually going to go for the Sentry first. I like this a little bit better, automatically putting the Vi up to a point where she can take out the other Vi. Because if you attack your Vi into your opponent's Vi, and they don't do anything, then that is extremely unfortunate for you, because you have given away your opportunity to get Flash Freeze value at all. And if you throw out the Flash Freeze beforehand, then your opponent can play enough cards to just get their Vi into at least enough attack to push back some damage onto your Vi, which you don't want to do. You want to keep your Vi as healthy as possible, limit Thermogenic Beam and Vengeance to the only ways to kill it. And I do like this Avarosan Sentry actually dissuading something like a Ruination, but we do see the Thermo Beam come out now from Phillips onto Gratcher's Vi, and I would assume that Gratcher is going to respond in kind with a Thermo Beam of his own. Considering the Static Shock, it would leave the Vi at 1 HP. So I think if Gratcher does want to go for a Static Shock play, he's actually going to attack with the Sentry first to push through the 2 damage. Not going to be the case, though. He's just going to fire off this Static Shock. These players bait me a lot. Okay, he's going to lock that one in. The Static Shock is going to come out here. Of course, no damage going to be pushed onto Vi because she's tough. Static Shock number 2 picked up. And that's normally your quickest way to turn on the Ezreal. But of course, decks like Karina Control, not running a lot of units and not throwing them on the board against this Ezreal deck is going to make this Ezreal very slow to tick up. The Frostbite effect's not very good. I do think that while traditionally Ezreal Karma has a decent time against Karina Viraza, I do think the Freljord version is going to struggle a bit more. And here we do just see the second Static Shock fired off to cycle through the deck and add 1 more to the Ezreal counter. Only sitting at 3, though. Yeah, here we are on turn 9. Ezreal only at 3 out of 8. Commander Ledros starting to come down, and the Vi has remained unanswered from Gratcher. This could be a lot of damage getting pushed through. We are going to have to see the Iceveil Archer down onto the Ledros. If you throw it onto the Vi, then the Iceveil Archer can just get challenged out by the Vi, and then Ledros attacks. You get to use a Frostbite effect, which is cool, but it is still a -1, and Gratcher's hand is honestly just looking really weak right now. 6 cards in his hand are more or less useless. We see the double Harsh Winds, the double Flash Freeze, the double Mushroom, and even this Avarosan Marksman isn't going to get any value done. It is an Ezreal target, which, you know, is something. It's not nothing. It's not much. And we probably are going to see Gratcher fire off a Flash Freeze here, just to help protect himself from losing his only fearsome blocker at the moment. It's also possible that... Yeah, okay, so this is actually fine. It does still set up the Thermo Beam. That's what I was concerned about, because there is going to be 2 damage pushed onto this Vi. But I do think that this is Gratcher's last opportunity to really take out this Vi. and instead going to go for the Avarosant Marksman. This is a little scary. He has set himself up with a couple of fearsome blockers, but one Static Shock could spell disaster for Gratcher here in game number 2. Of course, Ezreal now at 6 out of 8. And with the attack token on Gratcher's side, does pick up an Ezreal. That's pretty nice. It's going to be a while before he can actually string together a lethal. And the other problem with the Frostbite Ezreal deck is you don't have any protection for the Ezreal. You throw it down, and that's that. If they have a removal spell for it, your Ezreal is going to die. There's nothing you can do about it. There's no denies coming out to protect it. No double karma spells to help you push through that excess damage. And that's one of the reasons we saw the deck fall off. I'm not totally sure why it's actually making a big resurgence. I would assume that it is due to Icevale Archer mostly. But it is strange to me that we're seeing Freljord come back instead of Noxus. Ezreal Draven, of course, still a powerful deck in my mind, but it is a completely unexplored Ezreal archetype in the last few weeks of the Rising Tides meta. I don't think we've had any Ezreal Draven top in the Rising Tides meta, actually, which is interesting to me because they got a lot of cool tools, you know, Avarosant, or not Avarosant Sentry, sorry. I was going to say Arachnoid Sentry acts as a pseudo-Avarosant Sentry, or not Avarosant Sentry, Icevale Archer, that's the one. Sorry, still getting my card names mixed up, it's early. Haven't finished my energy drink just yet. But as I was saying, Arachnoid Sentry acting as a pseudo Icevale Archer. You have Ravenous Flock, just one of the most effective removal spells in the game. Draven, one of the best units for fighting for early boards against something like Burn deck, and we are going to see the Ezreal upgrade here. And the Flash Freeze onto the double Ledros does put Gratcher in a pretty good position. We're going to see the Mystic Shot down on the face, puts Phillips at 12. I believe we're going to see at least one of these Thermo Beams fired off. Yeah, we're going to see a Mushroom Cloud as well, and that does make me think that we're going to see 2 0-mana Thermo Beams fired off as well. Yep, there he goes. This is going to put Phillips at 6, which does actually mean Gratcher has lethal with the 3 burst spells in his hand. Exactly 10 mana from the Harsh Winds, Flash Freeze, and Mushroom, Poison Puff Caps. That's the name of the trap. So yeah, this is actually going to be Gratcher picking this one up 2-0, assuming he can throw out these spells before Phillips has any burst healing. I don't think there is any burst healing in these regions, so... And yeah, this is a problem that a lot of people have with Ezreal. If your opponent just has the burst spells and you're at a life total like this, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. No fast speed healing or lethal is going to get it done. And Phillips is swinging for lethal. Yeah, we just need to see Gratcher fire out the 3 burst speed spells. If he goes for the Mystic Shot, then there is some counterplay potential from Phillips. And I think it's pretty hard for Gratcher to miss this one. It's just going to throw out the Harsh Winds. It's going to put Phillips down to 4. Flash Freeze to 1. It's possible he's still considering the Mystic Shot. It's not totally... I would assume that he snaps it off. Okay, yeah, so actually Gratcher not snapping it off for some reason. I can't think of a reason to do this to your opponent. You do just have lethal. Okay, yeah, just letting the attacks go through and then doing it. Call that one a PEMDAS because the order of operations doesn't... I don't actually know where I was going with that. I started to say order of operations, then I was like, what am I saying? Let's see if anyone else... We do still have a live stream, so we're going to go join Hand of Mine. Ooh, and we are getting in immediately at the start of a game. Perfect. So we see Hand of Mine on Misfortune Sejuani versus Raging Pixie on MF Scouts. And it looks like a Scout deck on the side of Hand of Mine as well, which is pretty typical for Misfortune. We don't really see her outside of Scout decks too often. And the Bilgewater Freljord deck is something that we saw Bruised by God actually bring out in Duels of Runeterra 9 last week, as well as a couple of other players. I know Strife Crow played it a bit on ladder, got an impressive 19-1 record. Hit Master, all that good stuff. But yeah, Bilgewater Freljord has been a little popular lately. I haven't seen too much of it. We're actually going to see the... Okay, so we're going to see the warning shot fired off, get the Jagged Butcher out as a 3-3. I'm not sure how standard this list is. I only know that the concept exists. I haven't actually seen many of the lists myself. But Hand of Mine getting in damage on turns 1 and 2 does mean Sejuani's about halfway to evolution already. And even a Bright Steel Protector here can't protect the War Shift thanks to the Misfortune. And the MF Scout decks are generally pretty light on removal. It's just going to be single combat to take this Misfortune out of the backline. But without a unit big enough to do that just yet. Okay, Bright Steel Protector does come down, which means we do have a potential answer for this Misfortune. Yeah, holding back the Omen Hawk I like. Okay, it is going to be the Bright Steel Protector block, so no single combat coming out onto the MF. Which does likely mean he doesn't have it. Now, I'm not sure if Hand of Mine is running Elixir of Iron. Let me see if I can get a hang of his deck lists here. A hang of? Yeah, that's a phrase. Those are English words. Hand of Mine, here we go. Hand of Mine has been a pretty big fan of Sejuani since the card came out. He did run it last week with, I believe it was Swain. Perfect. So we do see, okay, we've actually got 3 copies of Warning Shot in here. The Pilfer package to help maintain cards. Citrus Courier and Riptide Rex. This all seems to make sense to me. So this is, I'm not sure if this is the standard list for it, but this is a very Pilfer heavy, very plunder activating type of Scout Freljord deck on the side of Hand of Mine. Pretty interesting. This is what I was talking about. You know, we do get to see a lot of interesting decks here in the OLS. Alright, we do find the Fleet Feather Tracker to take out the MF. And an MF of Raging Pixies as well. But both players pretty low on cards. It kind of depends on if Hand of Mine can stall out into the Riptide Rexes. Definitely think Raging Pixie is currently sitting in the driver's seat. Of course, Bark Beast, one of the best 1-drops that you could pull out for this Island Navigator. Actually, I think this deck is actually built to get the Allegiance triggers as well. There are 9 Freljord cards in the deck of Hand of Mine. 3 Omen Hawk, Fury of the North, and Sejuani. But it's pretty likely that this Yordle Grifter goes off, especially given that Omen Hawk was the draw for the turn. So, Hand of Mine sitting in not a bad position. I think he's definitely got the tools to stall out until these Riptide Rexes start coming down. Does even have a slew of 3 attack defenders in case Cythria the Bold start coming down from Raging Pixie. And if this is MF Scouts instead of MF Bannermen, we do see both of these pretty regularly, then it's possible that there are no Cythria. Cythria, definitely not something that we traditionally see in the MF Scout decks, but MF Bannerman not out of the question. Pulling up the deck list for you guys right now, just so I can see if Cythria is in here. Okay, so this is MF Bannerman, so we do see Cythria the Bold. Oh, interesting. So we see 3 Vanguard Bannermen, but there's also a pretty greedy non-allegiance package here for Raging Pixie. We do see Misfortune, Jagged Butcher, and Citrus Courier, so 8 total non-Demacia cards. Does mean these Bannermans could be a little bit weaker. Oh, but we saw a Cythria picked up by the Yordle Grifter. Sorry, I was looking at the deck list, missed that one. So actually, yeah, that's really good for Hand of Mine. That cannot be understated. Cythria the Bold definitely going to help you hedge your way into the mid-game here. And we do have the... Of course, the Yordle Grifter creating the Warning Shot is going to be great to turn on this Riptide Rex. Hired Gun would go down onto the Badger Bear. I think I have to like Cythria a little bit more. It is just an infinitely more effective blocker here. 3 damage could get pushed onto it by the Valor. And of course, Pixie is going to want to go for the double attack, both to creep towards that MF level up as well as the Quinn one. I'm trying to run my math and, you know, just access my memory and see if we are actually going to see this MF upgrade before the Riptide Rex can come down onto it. Because Raging Pixie does have the attack token on turn 8. I believe this MF has only seen 1 combat phase so far. And since the Scout attack does come out, yeah, if Raging Pixie goes for an open attack on 8, then we will at least see the MF upgrade. If it is a Scout attack, then there's a chance that Riptide Rex can pick her off before the second round of attacks, but having all of your MFs upgraded from here on out is definitely something that cannot be understated. Omen Hawk coming out as a chump blocker here. I don't actually love this since there is going to be a loyal Badger Bear attacking you later in this turn, which does, of course, represent more damage than the Quinn. I would have liked to see you chump block that instead. Alright, so my math was right. MF will be upgrading on the following turn. Of course, there are 2 copies of Relentless Pursuit in the deck for Raging Pixie, so it is possible that we do see the MF upgrade a little bit earlier. I think Hand of Mine has to find his way into turn 8 if he's going to have a chance in this game. Hired Gun definitely going to come out next turn, get vulnerable down onto the Badger Bear, but without something to remove it, doesn't actually mean much. And with Cytheria going down, it does mean that this 3-4 Hired Gun will not be able to upgrade into the 4-5 and take out the Badger Bear. Yeah, this is a little awkward for Hand of Mine. This Black Market Merchant, you really can't afford to use the warning shot here. You absolutely have to save it for Riptide Rex, especially since you have 2 copies. We're going to get to see Raging Pixie get a pretty big setup here. And as I mentioned, the MF evolution will come up. If Raging Pixie can go wide enough, there's a pretty good chance that this Riptide Rex doesn't get anywhere near enough done. Ooh, Cytheria the Bold coming down for Raging Pixie. If we see a Relentless Pursuit here, I do think that's going to be the end of the game. I do think Hand of Mine actually has to get down this Black Market Merchant here just to develop the extra blocker. It does feel a little impactful, and it's going to be quite a while before you get that thing down with a Plunder Off anyway, since you do have the double Riptide Rex in hand. But yeah, it's pretty reasonable that this MF would not actually die to this Riptide Rex. I haven't run the exact percentages. But with the Cytheria coming down and adding 6 health to the board, if Riptide Rex fires perfect, you can kill the entire board. Well, that's actually pretty unlikely because, yeah, the MF will upgrade here, which does mean that we'll take... yeah, so if Riptide Rex fires perfectly, 2 onto MF, 3 onto Cytheria, 2 onto the Badger Bear... Oh no, because Badger Bear is going to be a 5-5. Yeah, okay, so there's actually no way for Riptide Rex to clear the board. Sorry, I got so caught up in the math there. I forgot about the +1/+1 from the Cytheria. So yeah, we are going to have to see at least 1 block here, and I do like the Hired Gun actually pushing the damage onto the Cytheria. Not sure how I feel about the Yordle Grifter, because it will not actually push any damage onto the Badger Bear. I think you can still take a little bit more damage, because you are trying to kill off this MF this turn. Then it's possible that you never have to throw this Yordle Grifter under the bus. You can take a little bit of damage. You could have gone to 5. There aren't any riposts in the deck of Raging Pixie. It is just Ranger's Resolve, Single Combat, and Relentless Pursuit. Alright, what did Rex hit? I was about to say, I only see 1 onto the MF, and that's not good. Ooh, Ranger's Resolve coming down as well. This could be a little bit dicey here. It is just going to be the Cytheria dying, and it looks like no damage getting pushed through the face. But that is the only Ranger's Resolve, but without a good activator for the second Riptide Rex, this one would almost certainly just get blocked out. Yeah, things not looking great here for Hand of Mine. There are options for him to activate this, Citrus Courier, I believe, is just going to be lethal here. Yeah, that's at least 11 damage coming through, and unfortunately, Hand of Mine just picking up the double Riptide Rex into the Ranger's... Yeah, this was pretty unfortunate. If the Ranger's Resolve hadn't have come out, MF would be the only surviving unit, and the Citrus Courier wouldn't have been enough, but that's the way it goes sometime, and the double Riptide Rex coming to bite Hand of Mine in the ass. As much as I love the unit, it is problematic in this sense, and we're even going to see single combat to take out the Riptide Rex and absolutely guarantee the lethal. There are no spells in Hand of Mine's deck that could have prevented this, and there are no cards that have been pilfered out of Raging Pixies. We are going to see Raging Pixie picking this one up, and I believe that was game 3, so should be moving on 1-0 here in the OLS number 2. Check the game count right after we get out of this. Yeah, that's 2-1 Raging Pixie.